It's about time to get with the program.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Progressive Rampage, where we ask you to get with the program. Something that I've seen very influential people saying as well. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez being one of them. And I'm glad that this old-timey phrase, as Chris and I were talking about, is something that's really kind of getting back into the ecosphere. And because it really is time to get with the program, it's time to get with the union program and workers' rights program. It's time to get with the damn podcast program. That's what I say.
Damn right.
So, Chris, anything new and interesting happened to you so far over the weekend?
Well, last night I went out bowling, and I hadn't been bowling in quite some time, and I won the game. Actually, I tied with another young lady. We both got a horrible score of 99, and it was a friend of mine's birthday. He's turning 30-something, and we're out playing bowling and laser tag. And I just, it's nice to get out for a change. I tend to drag myself down into a lot of work. I have an actual day job that pays the bills, and then I have my work that I do for Our Voice USA, and then I also am in the middle of producing this podcast and learning how to make it look prettier on YouTube. So needless to say, I don't see the sunlight that often. So last night I got out. I actually had a couple of beers. This morning I woke up with quite the hangover, so bear with me.
But before we get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about, when I was in the Army, so it's part of what was called the 86th Combat Support Hospital station in Fort Campbell. Yeah. And every, the birthday, the anniversary of our becoming a unit is called the O Day, for like Organization Day. And so what we typically do is we'd go to the bowling alley and get trashed. I mean, fucking trashed. So throughout, start drinking from the beginning of the day, and end up drinking. And so you're in Civies because you can't drink in uniform.
Yeah.
But you still have to show up to formation. But by the end of the day, I mean, I've got 7 pitchers in me, and so I'm trying to stand at attention, and I'm kind of wobbling a little bit. And dude, I could throw down some beer in the Army. Jesus.
Damn, drinking in your civvy.
But yeah, I know, right? Well, and then I was going to say that a good game for me at bowling is 120. So 99 is a pretty average game for me. I'm pretty shitty. I don't go out bowling very often either.
I see.
I might look like Lebowski, but I'm no real Lebowski.
I did take bowling as my sport in college, so I should have done better. But like I said, it'd been quite some time. It was like learning how to rewrite a bike, and I was already a couple of drinks in when I started doing it. So I digress. We were talking about people appropriating old-timey terms, and get with the program. Just before we started here, you showed me a meme that's been produced. I assume it was produced by either a supporter or directly from the Ocasio-Cortez people. But you want to tell me what's up with all that? The Green New Deal? Is she really this? This is definitely who she is, huh? That there's no subterfuge going on?
Here's the thing is that people will always let you down. As much as I trust you, at some point, you're probably going to let me down. As much as you trust me, at some point, I'm probably going to let you down. And so we need to allow people to let us down, but then hold their fucking feet to the fire so that they can make up for that. Yeah. So it seems like this is really who she is. That said, she's constantly around people that are trying to poison her mind. So she's got to fight for her life effectively, right? Because people are going to try to pull her underwater. But yeah, this meme says the Democrats need to wake up and smell the millennials. And what that means is what millennials are standing for. It's got these bullet points of Medicare for all, free college. Parenthetically, you could assume at the point of admission, because we obviously pay for it through taxes. Gun control. And gun control doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to take all your guns. But anyway, gun control, legal weed. I love that they just throw out weed and not have to go to marijuana. We gotta get
cannabis. Right. You can always tell. You can tell the crust people peel themselves out of the way they refer to pot, weed, marijuana, Mary Jane, cannabis. Right.
Well, and I think some people use marijuana just because they feel it's more safe. Right. More safe to use. Not like, well, this guy fucking he's just throwing out this slang.
I guess then there's proper alcoholics don't call it booze.
$50 an hour. Right. Yeah. Right. Unless you're joking. Unless you're like, yeah. And then Green New Deal. Want to start winning again? Get with the program. So that's kind of what we talk about. We talk about workers' rights. We talk about things that actually, where corporate America really tanks the working class and really drags the working class under. And, with that in mind, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about what Mia Love said. Did you see that Mia Love was on The View just recently?
I did. I didn't watch the entire thing. I saw what you posted, and I started watching the clip and got sidetracked. But apparently, it seems that she. And I do want to make one little statement here before we dive into that, and it's that anytime somebody accused Hillary Clinton during 2016 primaries of playing the woman card, they were immediately bashed on social media and in the mainstream media for using that kind of reference. That it's kind of like a dog whistle reference to it's from the patriarchy. So to see an article, even though it's pointing out the truth that Mia Love is playing a race card, it kind of struck me as like a pretty horrible way to put it, even though it's about a person who's doing a horrible thing. But you get what I'm saying there?
So I see what you're saying there, and I don't think that's a bad default mode to start from.
Yeah.
When you get into what she says, I think it's pretty obvious that she really is playing the race card. But it's good to be in tune with that and be like, well, hold on a second here, and have your hackles rise, raise a little bit, and then dig into it. But so I pulled up a few quotes. So Mila, she was talking to Brian Kilmeade from Fox before this, and she talked about how. This is a quote from her and talking about the Democrats. They want to just do character assassination. And I'm telling you what, Brian, I'm not going to allow them to do that. And so here's what's interesting is all across the country, people are like, Nancy Pelosi's fucking evil, Nancy Pelosi, which I don't disagree, but right. Nancy Pelosi this, Nancy Pelosi that. All across Utah, there were literally billboards that I would see every day driving home from work that said, Ben McAdams, which is who beat her, Ben McAdams equals Nancy Pelosi. When she was at the debate, she mentioned how Ben McAdams was Nancy Pelosi 3 fucking times. So much so that one of the first, one of the first commercials he ever came out with is that he disagrees with Nancy Pelosi and that he will not vote for her. And then when he won and he was asked, hey, are you going to vote for Nancy Pelosi? He said, well, I made a promise to the voters and no, I won't. And he was actually one of the people who didn't vote for her. I don't know how much that really means. I like that he at least follows through with what he says. But anyway, she goes on to say when she's talking to Brian Kilmeade, this is absolutely, it's below me, ... This is something that's happening not just to me, but around the country. This is the way that they're trying to win. They will buy, they will cheat, they will assassinate your character to try and win. And while that's, people are like, oh, well, fuck, look at you, Mia Love, look at you, Republicans. And what's so interesting is that everything somebody like this, who drinks the Kool-Aid, who's attached to this dark money, and I want to say it was something like 85% of Mia Love's money came from out of state. And so this isn't untrue. Everything she's saying is absolutely true. Republicans typically do it worse, but and as you read what they say, you can start to see these are the avenues that we go down, and these are the strategies that we employ in order to win. And that's what's fascinating about reading shit from shills like this, is that you can really see how they feel and how they act by how they accuse people around them.
It's clearly Machiavellian. Yeah.
Dude, absolutely. And blame your critics or blame your opponent for things that you do in order for if I go out and murder somebody and I call the cops, say, whoa, hey, look at this guy's murdered, like likely I'm not going to be the first person of interest, right? Because why would I call the cops on myself? And then she goes on to say, Democrats targeted me because I am a black female Republican. They replaced me with a middle-aged white male, Love said on ABC's The View. So she lost by 694 points. So she is the only female black Republican in office in the history of ever. And this, I think, goes to show how ridiculous identity politics are. Because Ben McAdams is definitely a neoliberal. He's definitely a blue Republican. But he is so far left of her because she's just batshit crazy that the idea that somehow just because she's black is somebody I should support. There was actually a black woman in the race in the primary by the name of Darlene McDonald, and I'll be fucking damned if she wasn't my number one. My number two was a guy by the name of Tom Taylor. Yeah. Neither of them collected enough signatures to continue on to the general election. So they lost the primary, and that was it. They were out. But yeah, Darlene McDonald was great, and I would have loved to seen a black woman of substance going against a black woman who lacks substance.
That is incredible.
But I'm curious your thoughts on identity politics. We saw a whole garbage of basically the beginning of 2015 till now, still even with but Russia, but misogyny, but
totally. And
whatever.
You have to know your history. The but Russia crap is a flip from the 70s and the 80s as well during the Cold War, but it was on the opposite side. The Republicans were saying that we had to be so scared of them, and the Democrats were out saying what we should be worried about is infrastructure and rebuilding our country. All of a sudden those roles have reversed, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, the good old Clintons, they with the help of the DCCC, they pulled the Democrats so far to the right that they are now occupying space that is right of what Nixon did. And Nixon is the guy who kept appointing George Hot War Bush to all of the positions that he was in that now the mainstream media likes to laud. So when I look at identity politics in this day and age, when we have the internet, and we should probably talk about net neutrality in a minute, but while we still have the internet, we can all do research on these people and we can find out what their record is. We have opensecrets.org to access. If you just look at their record, you look at where their money comes from, and then you listen to the words that they're saying. If it doesn't line up, this person's a dirtbag. They shouldn't be representing anyone. And no matter what game they play, it's almost like The View is helping this person, right? The View is helping Mia Love get that narrative out there for her. So does that mean then that The View backs Mia Love? Or does The View just latch on to anything that says, this is a race issue, we should all talk about it and make a big deal out of it so we can sell more shit for our advertisers? Identity politics, I guess I'm having a stream of thought here. It is a giant piece of capitalism. It's necessary for capitalism to survive, for people to give a fuck about those kinds of differences between us. Like, why can't I just not vote for Mia Love because she's not a woman of substance? She's not a person of substance. I don't even have to refer to her as a woman, right? Like, I don't know.
That's a really good point. And like, this is, so to answer your question about The View, I don't think that The View itself is like, hey, let's go ahead and tap into this race card. I think The View is all about, let's get a campfire, let's roast marshmallows, let's hold hands, let's sing Kumbaya, let's talk about nothing of substance that actually fucking matters.
Yeah.
And let's just talk to people, and let's just see that, and let's just show that us women up here who seem to want to lean left can hang out with this garbage fire of a McCain's daughter and talk about some of the worst people in history and show that we can hang out. Yay! But I think that totally. Identity politics is I think it's a lot like a bad Scooby-Doo episode. So you've got effectively, you've got a rundown amusement park that's dark and dreary, and that's analogous to the rundown middle class that has nothing or working class.
Yeah,
that has nothing to look forward to. That's roughly 70% of the country is $1,000 emergency away from bankruptcy. I want to say 50% of the country is makes about $30,000 or less. Which, yeah, I get that fight for 15 is the base and where we should start minimum wage. But that doesn't mean that you can save for a future. But anyway, so you've got this bad Scooby-Doo episode where it's the gargoyle or it's the mummy or it's the lightning monster, but at the end of the day, what is it? They pull off the mask, and it's some rich corporatist. Oh, hey, it's the Koch brothers. Oh, hey, it's Sheldon Adelson. Oh, hey, it's Tom Steyer. Which Tom Steyer, his views are definitely a little bit closer to me. But the idea that we have any billionaires kind of makes me a little sick.
You ever notice that the bad guy is not remorseful one bit? They pull the mask off and they say, I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you people looking for truth. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah, exactly.
For you kids and that dog.
Yeah.
Like, they don't care that they ruin people's lives, that they've stolen all this money. Like, people like Mia Love don't give a shit that she's playing a race card when doing so actually brings down people who otherwise are being discriminated against in that way. Every time you make that false claim, it's like a pitching average, right? You keep dropping that average for it being truthful. And then more and more, it's like it's crying wolf. Eventually, people aren't going to give a fuck when you say that.
Well, and I would argue that's the system working as intended, because the more people who don't tune in to actual racial issues, the more people will be convinced that racial issues are just bullshit. Kind of like if you ever listen to Jesse Lee Peterson, like that guy's fucking stupid, like legit fucking stupid. And he talks about how there's no such thing as race issues, and there's no such thing as race wars, and we never had a civil rights movement, or never needed to. Now, I'd like your opinion and point out where this is wrong. And this is again going into, if you read what a Republican attacks a Democrat for, one, it's not necessarily untrue, but two, it's exactly what they do. So it says, there was a whole lot of money in an R+13 district that went to take me out, she said. They tried to get rid of every single diversity that they possibly could. And to me, diversity on the left side is good only if you think the same way they do. That's not necessarily wrong, because Democrats are like, whoa, you need to butt Russia. Whoa, you need to toe the line. Whoa, you need to listen to Gary Cohen. Whoa, you need to listen to, GM, who's firing 13,700 people. And then she says, she said Democratic policies are designed to keep poor people poor and dependent upon the party, but Republican parties aim to lift them up toward self-sustaining independence. And she was targeted for such views. So while that's complete bullshit that there's self-sustaining independence, she's absolutely right that welfare systems are designed to keep people poor. And while, it's better that they not die, if you make you make $5 more than your cutoff, well, go pound sand. You might be out $1,000 in benefits or $2,000 in benefits, where that $5 is supposed to fill that vacuum. But too bad, so sad. So she's right that there are absolutely programs designed to keep you poor, keep you tied to a corporate party, which is Democrats. But the idea that her throwing bootstraps at you is going to make you self-sustaining independent is fucking horseshit.
Well, my take on that is, and it's probably not all that surprising. One, the methods of the right and the left in terms of Democrats and Republicans, and actually I'd rather not even say right and left anymore, because that's too broad a scope. Democrats and Republicans have notoriously done exactly the same thing when they attack each other. It kind of fuels my philosophy and the reason why I listen to right-wing radio when I drive home from my day job every day, and then I pay attention to leftist media when I get home and I'm able to access a computer. It's that I need to hear all the different sides, all the different perspectives on the different topics, and I don't get them all every time, but it helps me to formulate my own personal opinion on something rather than just falling into the trap of the hyperbolic chamber, as it were, right? It's just like this echo chamber, and it's hyperbole, it's bullshit. So when I want to know what a Democrat's doing wrong, taken with a grain of salt, I will listen to the right about it. And when I want to know what a Republican is doing wrong, taken with a grain of salt, I'll listen to the left or the Democrats about it. And I try to hear more than just the two sides of an issue to figure out what the truth would be, because they're all mentioning facts and then they're smearing those facts with all their opinions about it, right? So when Mia Love attacks the Democrats for trying to keep people in a feedback loop so that they're dependent on the state, that's not entirely inaccurate, right? Like what she's saying is exactly the problem with the welfare system. Now, the people on the actual left are saying we need a universal basic income, and that can actually satisfy everything that the Republicans want and everything the Democrats want for people, right? There's something to fall back on. I guess you could say you're dependent on the state for it, because some people will be able to figure out how to survive on just the UBI, and it also will wipe out the need for all of that infrastructure that we have in place to try to keep people fed and stuff, because it's like, here's your check. If you can't feed yourself on this, go find a charity, right? So, but right. At the same time, she only sees her own party with rose-colored glasses because she's been trained by the man to never speak ill of her own party. She won't be honest, because honesty requires you to have a little humility, and these people don't have any humility. I've met enough politicians now that the ones that aren't sincere people have zero humility. They fake it, but it's not there. You can tell. Every time I hear a Democrat knock a Republican's policy, all they do is they point out the absolute worst parts of the flaws. They don't ever look at any of the positives because they're not interested in trying to connect. And if you ever see something that's a bipartisan decision, or we came together, we crossed the aisle, we held hands on this one, that means that the deep state wanted it, and these people have no other choice but to have to plow that crap through. Usually war. It's usually war that we hold hands and move forward because we saw a fake dying baby on the beach, you know? That's my take on her move there. I think she's a typical career politician that is playing the same fucking playbook shit. I tell you, I heard ads on the radio in Maine up here during the primaries for this past election cycle. And those ads that were played by Republicans who were running for office were calling their Democrat opponents Nancy Pelosi California Democrat style. They were using Nancy Pelosi as like an adjective, like a put down. If you associated anybody with Nancy Pelosi, it was somebody who wants to waste all of your money and enrich themselves.
And then by saying this is California Democratic style, then this is like saying, one of the most largely densely populated states in the country. This is why we can forget about the idea of 1-to-1 population representation, and why we should have an electoral college. We shouldn't worry about how many voices want something. We should worry about how many states want something. And so this is a great way to water that down. Now, one thing I do want to point out, though, as far as when you said fake baby dying on a beach, where my mind went was, I want to say it was like 2 years ago, there was this super cute kid that was all dressed and maybe 2 years old that was dead face down on a beach in Syria, or it was about the Syria conflict. And while I don't think that was fake, the idea of why we're there is completely fake.
The picture,
you talk about how
the picture's depiction was fake. Sorry. I should clarify that the picture's depiction was fake, and to be honest, I should have picked a better example from further back in history. The fake girl that came from Iraq that claimed that came from Kuwait that claimed that they were throwing babies out of incubators and putting them on the floor. The way they sold the first Iraq war, right? That was completely fake. Right. That girl, she was the child of an ambassador. So anyway, they use the same tactic every time. Maybe this was a actual dead kid on the beach, but the use of that photograph had nothing to do with the situation. Much like what was happening at the border. Again, I am all for getting rid of ICE and putting something more reasonable in its place and having a better way of allowing immigration to have a freer, still controlled flow of people back and forth across the border. But when they showed that picture of kids getting ripped away from their mom that was on Time magazine, it has been proven that photograph has nothing to do with that situation. The kid wasn't being ripped away from her mother, and they both got let into the United States. So it's they're staging things, and they're doing it in such a way that they have plausible deniability because it was a real photograph.
Well, and since there's no earnestness, right? Since there's no earnestness, then there's no sincerity. There's nobody holding them to a certain standard of journalistic integrity. They just don't give a fuck, and it just fuels the idea of fake news. And so you get a real picture of a real dead 2-year-old that just pulls on your heartstrings, and then it gets you to say, "Yeah, that's right. We need to go murder all these fucks that are doing this." But the whole point of us being there is because Saudi Arabia wants a gas pipeline in Syria. And so Saudi Arabia can then, and might I remind you that Saudi Arabia is the number one funder of Wahhabism. Wahhabism is the most radical form of radical Islam. And so, when you talk about radical terrorists, this is where fucking Saudi Arabia lives. This is what Saudi Arabia fuels. And so they want this gas pipeline. And so what else does this happen? Oh my gosh. Who would then buy this gas? Oh, it'd be Europe. Oh, weird. So who currently gives Europe their gas? Oh, it's Russia. Yeah. Russia gives. So wait a minute. But Russia's evil. We're at war with Syria at the same time. Russia is an ally of Syria. Russia doesn't want us there. We want to get in there because we like all the money and all the war toys that we get to sell to Saudi Arabia. Oh my gosh. Imagine if almost they're connected. And scratching beneath the surface, one thing that I really like about your point about, you get a little bit of truth from listening to right-wing pundits, you get a little bit of truth listening to left-wing pundits. This is why I really like listening to people like Jimmy Dore, Ron Placone, Mike Figueredo with the Humanist Reports, because these are people that will attack Republicans and attack Democrats because they have a certain earnestness, right? They have a certain level of journalistic integrity.
And they're going to hold you to it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and they'll back it up, right? And they'll say, well, and here's how I feel. Here's why I think what I think. And if they're ever wrong, 99 out of 100 times they'll come out and say, "Hey, my bad, guys," and they'll correct the record. And I like that. And what's really scary is that we have all this this corporate socialism, right? Socialism is bad unless you give it to corporations, and so who's there to make a profit off of big oil, whether it be the Koch brothers, whether it be Saudi Arabia? Well, then you get this indoctrination where that starts from your inception. So recently, you may have seen that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Tlaib is how you spell her last name. But anyway, so Ocasio-Cortez is tweeting out, right now, freshman members of Congress are at a bipartisan, quote unquote, orientation with briefings on issues. Ocasio-Cortez tweeted just this last Thursday, just a few days ago. So it says, invited panelists offer insights to inform new Congress members' views as they prepare to legislate. And she puts number of corporate CEOs we've listened to here, 4. Number of labor leaders, 0. Well, Representative-elect Tlaib, so she tweets out, and I want to say she's from Michigan. She's definitely from a Midwest area.
It's Rashida Tlaib from Michigan's 13th congressional district.
Tlaib. Okay, so is that how you pronounce it? Yeah. So there we go. So that's my white guy.
Wikipedia.
Tlaib. She quickly retweeted this and put Gary Cohen. So you might remember Gary Cohen was CEO of Goldman Sachs.
Okay.
He also was on the Trump transition team. He also bailed on Trump after the tariffs went into effect because tariffs hurt his bottom line. But Gary Cohen, former CEO of Goldman Sachs, addressing new members of Congress today, you guys are way over your head. You don't know how the game is played. What the fuck?
You know what? That's him cracking the whip because Ocasio is pointing out all of these lobbyists are running their indoctrination ceremony, right?
Yep. Well, and so Representative-elect Tlaib comes out and says, no, Gary, you don't know what's coming. A revolutionary Congress that puts people over profits. So this is who they're surrounded with. So you've got Representative-elect Tlaib and Representative-elect Ocasio-Cortez in a fucking Shark Tank, surrounded by piranhas and sharks. And if they reach up, they're going to try and snap their freaking heads off. And we're good that or it's good for us that they are quite witty when it comes to snappy comebacks on Twitter, and that they can do it in real time, and that they can do it intelligently, and they can put people in their places. But they were constantly being surrounded by fucks that are trying to undermine their perspective and undermine their foundation, which is where I come back to. They need our help. If there's anyone who seems earnest, they need your help because they're surrounded by dishonest and disingenuous pieces of shit.
Wow. Yeah. I've got nothing to add to that.
Well, and then so add to this what was going on in real time. So you have these corporate CEOs coming in to indoctrinate these representative elects, these newly appointed people during their orientation and their onboarding. Well, now you've got GM. So GM got, if I recall, it was $50 billion in the bailout. They were part of the $80 billion auto industry bailout between 2008 and 2010. Yeah. Well, now that they've been propped up through corporate socialism, they're laying off 13.7K workers. 13,700 workers. That's 8% of their overall workforce.
And they've done zero layoffs in Mexico, right?
Yep, zero layoffs in Mexico. This is only in the U.S. So, and again, coming back to Bill Clinton. So George Herbert Walker Bush, he couldn't get NAFTA passed. So it took a Democrat to pull the Democratic Party to occupy the space where Republicans were in order to get it passed and show, look, this is bipartisan. Yep.
That was the incubator for pushing the Democrats to the right. Which, by the way, the entire planet's moving to the right. It's all becoming very right wing as far as the getting closer and closer to an authoritarian rule in different countries. Just something people should be very aware of, and not to paranoia you too much, but don't lose sight of that.
Well, studies show time and again that the way capitalism works, when there are these capitalist crashes, which are planned for, like that's how capitalism works, is that the banks plan for crashes. When they crash, it gives rise to right-wing authoritarianism. In fact, the 2008 crash, what we call the Great Recession, is directly linked to authoritarianism in Hungary. And
Yeah.
so this is not working as unintended. This is not just a coincidence. This is how you keep things authoritarian, and this is where capitalism does have a certain level of beauty in that it can vastly reward somebody who is a visionary and they see that there's a vacuum in a good or service. But then the problem is that capitalism is like, okay, so now since you have that vision, you should be able to just be a leech on every single person that you use to sell that good or service. Go fuck them because they weren't visionary enough. And so you should siphon off the very workforce that's required to sell your good or service. And you should be vastly rewarded while they are vastly undermined and their standard of living is vastly undermined and they're just kind of ground into dust because fuck you. And this is my problem with capitalism as it is, and this is why I like this is why I like democratic socialism, because democratic socialism puts in social safety nets. And yeah, you should be rewarded. You were a visionary, you should be rewarded, but you know what? Go fuck yourself if you think that you should siphon off your workforce that you require to sell your good or service. They should also benefit as you benefit.
You know, it's it's almost as if capitalism has its incubation period whenever it shows up, and you have a huge boom of prosperity because the proponents that want to argue against switching to any other system or even a hybrid system, which I'd like to think is really where we need to go. We can't just pick something that's already been done. They've all failed. But people who defend capitalism say that it pulled more people out of poverty than any other economic system in the history of mankind. And I would like to say that that's probably true. So democratic socialism is possibly the only way capitalism can actually survive.
So I would agree. I would agree that democratic socialism is likely the only way that that capitalism can survive. In much the same way that if there's a disturbance in the force and any sort of predator-prey association, then it creates a runaway destructive ecosystem. They're finding out that killing all the wolves and perhaps people would find this analogous to authoritarian communism or socialism. Killing all the wolves, like in Yellowstone, actually causes a lot of problems with some of the waterways because the plants that are indigenous there that suck pollution out of the water that allow the waterways to be much cleaner are eaten because there's just a plethora and overabundance of plant eaters, and releasing wolves in there actually will actually keep that in check. But if you kill all the plant eaters and you have nothing but wolves, and then you just turn on your own and then top dog, right? Wolves are built on an alpha system. Yeah, they've got a pack. You definitely have an alpha. If you ain't alpha, well, then you aren't breeding. You aren't passing on your genetic code. You're not passing on your ideas. Yeah,
that is the analogy I was trying to find. Precisely.
Well, and so I also wanted to talk to you about. We've seen some controversy lately, which I think is really fucking stupid, about like baby is cold outside, and then I saw people talking about how they had issues with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like the old school claymation, like I watched when I was a kid. That was still fucking old when I was a kid. I'm 38 years old.
Yeah, right. With the elf that wants to be a dentist, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and they talk about how Rudolph was exploited by Santa, and effectively, it's analogous to being exploited by capitalism. And so, this is where I'm going to have a bit of a switch here. And so, people say, here's Rudolph. Capitalism came in. They exploited him for corporate profits. And so corporations can do what they need and get more toys sold and given off. And so I differ from that idea in the sense of you've got 12 reindeer, right? Isn't that right? On 12 reindeer?
Yes.
And so one of them, so 1/12, think differently. And granted, yeah, this is a nose. That means he's born physically different. No, but let's take this in thoughts.
He's number 9. There are 8 reindeer.
Oh, there are 8 reindeer? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So one out of 8. Wow, I don't know where I got 12 from then. That shows how much I pay attention
12 days of Christmas?
Yeah, that must be what it is. Okay. And so one of 8 reindeer, he thinks differently, or rather, in this case, looks differently. And so everyone makes fun of him. Oh, look how stupid you are. Nobody wants you because you're different. Well, come to find out, his difference, his way of thinking is different, and that's actually what makes him successful. That's actually what makes him better. And so Santa comes around, it's like, look at all you motherfuckers, all you guys, I get the same old. Like, how does it benefit me? Oh, here's a guy who thinks different. Let's see how this works. Oh shit, you're occupying a need that makes it safer. So why is runaway capitalism so fucking dangerous? Because it allows just an amassing of wealth from very few people. They take resources from the masses. So here's a dangerous situation. Santa's trying to fly through the air. He can't see. Well, the people can't see, basically till tomorrow because they don't have the resources to plan. They don't have the resources to plan for their retirement, to plan for tomorrow, $1,000 emergency away from bankruptcy, living hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck. Well, Santa's like, well, fuck, guys. I've all 70 of you motherfuckers think the same thing. Here's this guy who thinks differently. Well, you know what? Not only do I see that this makes us safer, but I actually want to reward him, and bestow honors upon him because this is good. We need people willing to buck the trend. We need people willing to stand up and say, hey, this is how we can become safer. We become safer by distributing wealth, not by amassing wealth. Yeah. And so I think that there are definitely ways in which capitalism should be critiqued and should be lambasted. But I think lambasting it through Rudolph is the wrong way to go. I think that we can actually use Rudolph as a critique of capitalism to show that people who think differently have something of value to give. And even in the case of, coming back to Mia Love thinks differently, I would say, than the average black woman, but she gives us a critique of the Democrats, which is actually not necessarily untrue. Granted, she's a little disingenuous, but there's still something of value to take away from it. And so I think that Rudolph is giving us this safety value that we should see. He's the red, the red light saying, and here's where I might go off the rails, but he's the red light. You might say, immediately hearing red light, you might think red light district. Well, why is that so bad? Why is a red light so bad? Why is a red light district so bad? Why is the oldest profession in history so bad? What happens if we regulated it, right? What happens if we regulated prostitution? Well, you know what? You'd get less diseases. You'd get less women exploited by dangerous people. You would get less women who are murdered and because they don't have a voice. And so you could actually potentially benefit people if you actually if you had a regulated sex worker industry. You'd probably have less incels. Incels are some of the most radical white nationalists and racist and terrible human beings. We've seen them in Canada running over people in vans. We've seen them here tied to the terrorist acts here in the U.S. And if you actually gave somebody the ability to pay and have some sort of transactional relationship where they bust a nut, they no longer want to murder people because they can actually have sex with beautiful women that where they feel they're owed it. Well, if you have a transactional relationship, well, now you are owed because I gave you, a good, my money. Now you give me the service. And so there are ways to benefit here and use capitalist systems in order to benefit society, but it can't do it itself. It needs guidance.
I have to say, Josh, I really love that you were able to take Christmas and Santa Claus and segue directly into prostitution. I also like the idea of looking at, I've heard people say before, and not many lately, ever since Christianity got coupled with right-wing conservative politics, they haven't mentioned it much anymore. But there was a point in time when the secular conservatives would comment on Christmas saying that Santa Claus is just is giving kids hope for socialism because he goes out and gives everybody the same stuff, right? But really, right. I think you've tapped into something here. Santa, with his Coca-Cola colors and his throwback to the mushrooms that float above Jesus and all of the symbolism of the origins of that mess. And he's expressing capitalism. He's expressing exploitation, which is the basis for capitalism. And exploitation doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. Exploit means that you're going to get something out of something else's work or labor that's going to benefit you. So I work and I'm a laborer. I trade my work for money. And the person that's giving me money is the capitalist. And that person trades their ability to wield that money for labor to generate more money. And then the true capitalists are those on Wall Street who are just pushing money around, making more money off of people as they lose everything they have. And right. if we don't switch into something, I'm on the fence, man. I guess that's why I'm stuttering so much on it. I like the concept of capitalism and maybe even coming up with another economic system that utilizes some of the aspects of it, but not necessarily the greed, the drive. Like for instance, the corporations that have to be beholden to their shareholders, right? They have to turn a profit. That's their number one motivation. Why can't we have a society where their number one motivation is to like have a reverse impact on the environment and actually grow a tree every time they chop one down, right? I don't know. We don't have a system that's based on survival of human race. We have a system that's based on the acquisition of more shit.
Acquisition of more shit and strictly for shareholder profits, right?
Yeah.
And so shareholder profits, and this is my problem with looking at Wall Street numbers, and you look at the stock market, like, just because the stock market is doing good doesn't mean a fucking thing for you and me. Like, yeah, it may mean that our 401k is getting a little bit better if you have if you actually have a 401k or a 403b, but it doesn't necessarily mean that at all. And in fact, often when the economy crashes, those are some of the first things that get gutted. Those are some of the first things to go. And where capitalism needs some form of control, the Eisenhower infrastructure bill. During Eisenhower's reign, the highest tier of taxes for corporate taxes was actually at 92%.
Yeah.
So at 92%, the whole point was that R&D is tax deductible. Creating jobs is tax deductible. Expanding your business is tax deductible. So the whole point is you should avoid giving all of your money to the government by expanding your business, by paying your workers wages, by actually making America great. Right?
Exactly.
And so the Eisenhower in the Eisenhower infrastructure bill, when we built the interstate, each dollar put into it has a return on investment of $100. So it actually shows that this is fucking great for us. And then on top of that, there's a quote that I really loved. And I don't know if Ron Placone stole it or if he created it, but he said there is nothing pragmatic about an incremental approach to a catastrophic problem. Right? Think about that. There's nothing pragmatic in the sense that you said that exploitation in of itself isn't necessarily bad, but it's when we allow workers to be exploited for the sole purpose of corporate gains. So yeah, pragmatism. Most people think, well, pragmatism, I'm going to pay a certain amount of money so I can get my good or service, but I'm going to pay as little money as possible. Well, why is being frugal automatically pragmatic? We've heard constantly, day in, day out, I've been indoctrinated with the idea that you have to spend money to make money. And so why wouldn't a Green New Deal be pragmatic? Look at the Eisenhower infrastructure bill. It 100-to-1 return on investment. So why can't we clean up the environment through CO2? I saw a thing on Vice the other day where they suck carbon out of the atmosphere. They combine it with oxygen, and they create a carbon neutral fuel. So that's a way that if we need fuel, then we can have carbon neutral fuel. Then we also have solar power. Well, then we also have graphene, which is a new budding technology that's a superconductor that can help likely get this solar power and solar energy and wind energy to the power stations that we need more efficiently with less bleed off. But then it also has passive desalinization, because we're at a point where we have first world countries running out of water, like in Cape Town, South Africa. So there are a lot of things that we could just circle the wagons around and smartly and intelligently dump a lot of money in, so we can get a return on investment, one that's like, we actually still have a habitable planet, because I think if our planet becomes inhabitable, it's going to be pretty shitty, right, for all of us, and that's not going to be very pragmatic. But also it's going to create insane amount of jobs. In fact, there was a report that I read that said that just having recreational weed, recreational marijuana, MJ, whatever you want to call it, reefer, across all 50 states would create something on the order of like 1 million jobs. And so that's just reefer, man. And right. So you get these energy. I was reading another article that talked about how in Texas, the wind farms where you've got these windmills. Like a lot of guys work there are guys who used to work in the oil industry. The oil industry is incredibly volatile. I know. I was in the oil industry and got laid off. Go fuck yourself. And you still get executives getting their bonuses.
Right.
But
right.
these are guys working from the oil industry. It's got a lot more security. They're actually getting paid more. They got a better quality of life. It's something where they can actually retire. So there are ways that you can reward capitalism, people who see a need for a good or service, but then let's make sure that it actually has some protections where workers get living wages. Living wages means that there's more taxes being paid. More taxes means that we can use this for better, whether it be social programs or government programs or expansion. Because let's not just hold on to the money. Let's expand it and let's use it for the good of our population. And then the more money that we have as a collective, the more power we have to fight back against corporate overlords.
Let me
as long as we remain poor and the boot on our face, we're fighting a constant gigantic uphill battle.
What it comes down to in order to even achieve all of that is to be able to have real regulation, to have we the people, if we should have true representation. There's a lot of different starting points to fix all of this, right? You got to get money out of politics. You got to get, the vote to actually count and the ballot destruction to stop. But if we were to be represented properly, then the government truly would be representing us. And the government would be the regulation against industry that is out there so that our economic system won't collapse and still bail them out and fuck the rest of us over, and they'll go out and do stuff that's good for us. So I'd like to kind of see it as, you have kids, and when you look at your children, you love them, and you believe them to want to do the right thing. But if you see our economic system is like eating in a restaurant, and you bring your kids to the restaurant, the worst thing that can happen in that restaurant, that short of people getting poisoned or dying, is like kids running around and making a bunch of noise, right? And like throwing their plate and dropping the food on the floor and screaming and yelling. So as parents, you put constraints on those children. You don't do it in such a way that you're like tying them down, right? You don't do stuff that's going to be detrimental to them, but you train them. You teach them how to be polite in certain circumstances, how to respect other people, how to do the right thing. And at the same time, you think about corporations. They're considered, unfortunately at the moment, persons. They've had personhood for a lot longer than people think. And they've just had the power of speech since Citizens United, but they've been persons since the 19-teens, right? And they're children, because it's a corporation. It's not an actual developing human being. It's run by human beings, but its motivations are actually a mechanism that rarely changes. And so it really only goes for making more money. And that's kind of like a kid. A kid just goes for having whatever it wants without constraint. And so the government is the parent, and the government is supposed to constrain that so that everybody can play nicely. But every time they take those constraints away, it's like letting a child throw a steak across the room.
And so I think that's such a good point, because the thing is our default mode is I'm a living organism that needs to feed, fuck, and sleep, right? That's pretty much all, like, my default mode. And so none of that incorporates your rights or me being respectable to you, which is why we need to expand our default mode. And so just to assume that the default mode and allowing something to run on its own default, run without any regulations, run without any guidance, and like that's somehow going to be a healthy system for the rest of us is fucking insane.
There's no way.
And so what your point, yeah, dude, and your point about kids, like that goes directly into an op-ed that I wrote that got published by the Salt Lake Tribune, the biggest newspaper here in Utah. Specifically about how I can't honor my country on this latest 4th of July that we just had.
Right.
Simply because I don't really find it that honorable. And just a quick excerpt about that is just, I mentioned about the kid. Look, I have a 5-year-old little boy. I love him to death and would do anything for him. This is why I correct him when I see something I don't like in his behavior, whether it be him being selfish, rude, obnoxious, or overtly pouty.
Yeah.
If you are a parent, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You love your kids, so you want them to succeed. You don't. They don't have the inherent tools to succeed. They need to be led along the way. Our default mode does not have the inherent ability to be successful without ruining the lives of other people, which is why we need other people involved to create those regulations, which is why we need regular people like Representative-elect Tlaib and Ocasio-Cortez.
Yeah.
And to stand up, we need more people like that to say, look, horse shit. I don't know how the game is being played because I don't play your fucking game, asshole. I'm not going to play your goddamn Monopoly and just so you can get more stock buybacks, just so you can make yourself richer, just so you can get corporate bailouts and corporate socialism, and then pay your executives ungodly streams of money while the working class get a fucking pink slip and a middle finger. Fuck you, man. The rules of the game are changing because we're breaking the fucking game.
You know what, man?
Got this two-dimensional platform where we're going to a third dimension, right?
Hell yeah, dude. You know what? I got one backstop rule when it comes to deciding whether or not I'm going to trust a politician, especially when they come out like Ocasio-Cortez. The more aligned they are with the way I see the world, the more I have to be cautious, right? Because the easiest way to get people like us to shift along with the mainstream is to bring people out who are I guess bait, right? They're the carrot, not the stick, but they're the carrot, and you follow that carrot, and then the party hits you like a stick. But so I see Ocasio-Cortez, and I have a backstop, and that backstop is, if you vote for war, I'll show you the door. That really is the last resort. If she or any of these newcomers come in there and they're touting all this stuff, and then things happen, and then pictures of babies are dead on the beach again, and they start saying, yeah, it's a good idea to go bomb these countries, that means that they've been bought and we're done.
And I love that philosophy. And, with that idea of, if you're saying the things that I love and that I want you to say, my hackle should raise, because you know what? We're at risk of just succumbing to our confirmation bias. We want to hear what we already think. And so we need people to do say, things that we want to hear, but we need to be much more careful, because we can be seduced much like a siren and crash to the rocks, and then we're screwed. And with that, I think, as I mentioned, people like Representative-elect Tlaib and, again, Ocasio-Cortez, so what do you do when you're in that position? When you're in that Shark Tank and you're with those sharks and you're with those piranhas, you need to surround yourself with people, one, who actually care about you as a person, and two, care about you as a person so much that they will call you on your shit, and three, don't get so butthurt so when they do call you on your shit that you just want to alienate them, right?
Yeah. Be willing to take the criticism, because that's it. If they care about you so much that they're willing to break through the barrier of, we better not say nothing wrong or else she'll fire us. If they're going to break through and say some shit, then take that criticism, for fuck's sake. We've both witnessed people fail at that side of things.
Yes. Well, it's nearly the only mechanism that you can employ to make sure that you stay on forgive the phrase, but the righteous path. Righteous doesn't necessarily have to mean religious in the sense of what we think of Judeo-Christian and or Islamism or Christianity, whatever. But the way that you stay on that true path, that's true to your values and true to your value statements, is by surrounding yourself with people who actually love you enough to tell you that, bro, you're fucking up. Right? Exactly, dude. Exactly. Well, sir, that feels like a pretty good note for me to end on. I'm gonna have to go run around, do some stuff with the kiddo and the wife, and but I've truly enjoyed being in studio here, speaking with you, sir. Oh my goodness! Usually, I know. Usually, it's you and Jessie, though I've done a little bit better of making a concerted effort to make sure that I get in studio with you. I kind of want to give you a high five and a bro hug, boom. But,
Fist bump. No, I do appreciate it, Josh. All the effort that you're making to. Although I kind of do enjoy the drive-by segments as well. Maybe we can mix some of those in there.
Yeah, I need to do some more of that. I actually had a plan of doing a drive-by segment with the Rudolph thing, but I thought I'd incorporate it here. So maybe I'll expand that a little bit more. And
perhaps I'll incorporate some sleigh bells into the music this time around.
Dude, that'd be great. I'd love it.
I just got a message, and I think Jessie is going to be joining us. So there is a good chance the final production of this, ladies and gentlemen, is going to have Jessie peppered in as well. Holy shit! Somebody's at the door. Knock, knock. It's Jessie. What's up, man?
Not much. Just I don't know. Just rough Sunday morning when we're recording this because I think we both had a little bit too much fun last night. So.
But dude, I crushed at laser tag, motherfucker.
Oh, did you now?
Yeah, I scored as many points as the other team scored.
Single-handedly, you're out there
8,000. Yeah.
Well, that'll teach those 8-year-olds, won't it?
Absolutely destroyed them.
So, and then like I couldn't make it in when you guys were actually talking, but like we were talking earlier in the week. I am salty and burned out, and I can't deal with any more of political bullshit whatsoever. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, still interesting topic and everything else, but I'm starting to adopt the Scooby-Doo philosophy for politics now, and that there are no real monsters in the world. It's just rich white men trying to fuck everyone over.
Yeah. We actually we talked about Scooby-Doo a touch in one of the bullshit analogies we were coming up with, where when they peel the mask off of the bad guy in Scooby-Doo, he's not remorseful.
No,
and he was discussing Mia Love in Utah, that when she's like doing this thing where I guess they said she's playing the race card, which I don't like that term. It's a lot like rule of thumb. It's rooted in bigotry and hate, but she is basically trying to accuse the Democrats of keeping her down because she's black, and you know it's a slippery slope when you start pulling that shit, because she knocks the Democrats and what she says about them is actually true, but then when she touts Republicanism, what she's talking about Republicans is the rose-colored lenses that she views it through. So she'll never be honest about either side.
No, exactly. But it's but it's no different than what's going on in North Carolina with the whole someone walking around and picking up absentee ballots and only turning in the ones they want. Like,
yeah, right.
I mean, it's proven voter fraud, and that's why I'm salty, because it doesn't matter. It's to the point now, like the whole Trump issue, the all of this shit with politics. It's been proven time and time again that it's, you know, some rich Methuselah fucking retard behind the curtain pulling fucking strings on his, you know, 97th fucking organ transplant. I'm talking to you, Cheney, not me. You know what I mean? And the fucker's been alive since, you know, I mean, he probably is the guy that gave Jesus Christ his student loan. You know,
he was driving the forklift at the pyramids.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And it's been proven time and time again that this is the shit that's going on. And then they're like, well, what are you going to do? And it's like, go fuck yourself. Like, I don't know. Like, I was listening to a lot of shit about the whole Trump and Mueller and what the fuck, Flynn and all this other stuff. And it's like, there's proof. There's undeniable fucking proof. There's circumstantial evidence. There's actual evidence. There's, you know what I mean? It's one of those, I'm not even religious, but if Jesus Christ himself came down and said, yeah, fucking Trump told me if I gave him $50,000 for his campaign, you know, he would do this for me. It don't matter. Nothing's going to fucking be done. Nothing's going to fucking change. It's going to be status quo, and everyone's going to be like, well, let's focus on getting these fucking retards to buy more shit for Christmas, and that'll distract them.
Well, you know, actually, it's more like Jesus Christ came down and said, Mary Magdalene told me that the Trump campaign itself gave me $150,000 to not talk about how he's a terrible lay. And Mary Magdalene could have came out and said Trump grabbed me by the pussy, and they'd be like, well, you know, what are you going to do? Yeah, right. Well, how else is he going to grab you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like the Trump handshake bowling ball thing, you know, 2 in the stink, 1 in the pink.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Jesus.
He has a big thumb, too. I feel sorry for.
So
what it's really going to boil down to, though, I've been reading, is whether or not you can even prosecute a sitting president, or if it has to wait until afterwards. Because in the past, everyone has decided to give the president a second to quit first when they're definitely capable of prosecution, but only after he secured a pardon. Right, only after he secured a pardon from his vice president successor, which might have been the stipulation that Trump had for his VP pick in the first place. Would you be willing to pardon me no matter what? And he said, well, I'd have to consult with Mother, but probably.
Well, exactly. And that's the thing that gets me. So then what's the point? What's the point of any of it? Is they've shown that they rigged the election, both Democrats and Republicans. You know, Republicans were, you know, crying. And I mean, before the primaries, Trump was out fear-mongering about, you know, this ball of immigrants that's looking to roll into the United States and steal the election and voter fraud. And Republicans have been proven to have done it in 4 fucking states, including the one that I'm living in. And everyone's like, well, we just won't talk about that anymore.
Yeah, and then you go down to Broward County and you watch the Democrats pull the same shit.
Exactly. You know, right. I mean, A perfect analogy is this: the new job that I've got, there's a younger kid that we work with, and me and the older guys were kind of laughing. We were talking about Trump, and I said the only good thing about Trump is finally you get to see nudes of the first lady. And he got real quiet. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Melania Trump, the first lady, Donald Trump's wife." He's like, "Yeah." I go, "She used to be a model." He's like, "Yeah." I go, "She's got topless nude photos from a photo shoot." What do you mean? I said, "The first lady of the United States appears topless on an airplane." What? Why didn't I hear about this? And it's like, dude, it was everywhere. You just weren't paying attention.
Wow. I actually, the first time I got reprimanded on Facebook was posting a picture of Donald Trump naked because people made a giant life-size, completely accurate statue of Donald Trump completely naked with his junk out and everything, and they leave it sitting around in different cities, and so and take photos and put it up on social media. So I shared it, and I was told to take it down, and so then I found one that was Hillary Clinton, and of course I had to share that one too, and I had to take that one down as well. But it doesn't seem like society likes the human form all that much, especially people who are going to be voting conservative, which, by the way, are also people who are voting for Hillary Clinton.
Right, which are also people that are involved in, sex scandals, drugging little Boy Scouts.
Oh, right? They're all hypocrites.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, let me rephrase that. It's 2018, and I'm trying to be more politically correct. They are non-consensual sex enthusiasts, right?
Jesus Christ. So it's safe to say, Jesse, that you're kind of burned out, man. You're feeling apathetic after watching all that voter fraud. I mean, there's actually the Department of Homeland Security was recently connected to election integrity. They're basically the ones who get to investigate, and they're in an investigation right now. And I am not saying that this following statement is true, but it is something I've heard in more than one location of people who don't like lefties, I guess you could say. And they're saying that these investigations are going to find enough fraud to actually turn the House red.
Yeah, exactly.
That happens, and because nobody's in their seat yet, they're getting onboarded and stuff, but there's still all this lawsuit stuff going on, right?
Right.
So who the fuck knows what's actually going to happen? And that could, again, totally be bullshit, and someone else is reading too much into the lines. But
at the same time, is Homeland Security, those are people that have been put in place by people that have been put in place by people who are in power. So
it's like unelected people deciding an election.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
why? Creepy. Yeah.
Like you said, you and Josh were talking about. Like, wow, what a surprise that that the new people coming in for elected positions that people voted them in, they don't deal with other government issues or government people. They're dealing with lobbyists.
Right. So we have a person like Cortez who gets in, who doesn't take PAC money from giant corporations as far as we can tell, and I'll just go ahead and believe it. And she's holding up signs saying I won't take oil money and all this other, and of course she's going to expose it, right? Wouldn't you have freaked out if Jesse goes to Washington? Isn't the first thing you're going to do is tell somebody, holy shit, this is really fucked up here?
Oh no, if I got elected, I would surgically implant like a fucking GoPro in my forehead with a
just film it all, right?
And it would be live. Exactly, it'd be live fed instantly, like live PD, and it would be on the internet and whatever channel wanted to pick it up, and it wouldn't even be me having to expose anything. Because if people really saw how fucked up our country runs, they would be surprised, they would be shocked, and they would be terrified.
I think so. I just want transparency, damn it. So you're feeling apathetic from it, dude. What do you do to pull yourself out of that? You just have to lay low and just avoid all topics.
It's not just so much avoid all topics. It's just honestly, it's channeling my spirit animal, which is George Carlin, and just instead of getting mad and like you said, being apathetic, is just sitting back and enjoying the fucking show. There ain't nothing I can do about it. There ain't nothing you can do about it. There ain't nothing 350 million of us can do about it. We still are going out this month. Perfect example, this month. We're going to go out and buy shit we don't need with money we don't have because of a fucking day on the fucking calendar.
Yeah, fucking Santa Claus, dude.
Exactly. I mean, and then you start looking about it. It's not even Christmas. It's consumerism. It's forced patriotism or forced and if I hear one more war on Christmas, I swear to God, oh, you motherfuckers. Fuck you. If you believe that there is a war on Christmas and it's wrong to say happy holidays to someone instead of Merry Christmas, you need to go and get a shotgun and put it in your mouth and just, start over. Hit hard reset.
I tried to play a game last year on Facebook, and my mother follows me on Facebook. So anybody out there in the audience, if you want to follow us on Facebook, just look our fucking names up. That's how it works. Pretty much. And if you want to talk shit to my mom, she's the person with my same last name. Follow me. So you can go tell her like how tiny my penis is, or you can tell her that I'm an awful human being. Whatever.
Either that, or you could get on and play Fortnite and hear how everyone fucks your mother. So.
Oh,
hey,
there it is. Yeah. Well, I mean, I am the one who circulated those photos in the first place.
Yeah, that's true.
So. I tried to fuck around on Facebook last year, and I started a hashtag Claus Lie because I wanted to point out that the whole notion of Santa Claus bringing you gifts being told to you by your parents is a lie. It's the first time you really lie to your kids, unless there's like tragedy before that talk, and you have to not tell them that their uncle shot everybody, but. You basically lied to your children about this magical being that's going to break into your house, that they allow to break into your house, eat your food, drink your milk, and leave behind a bunch of presents.
Yes.
And he knows when you're sleeping, when you're awake, he's paying attention to you the whole time. Is this guy? He's almost more powerful than Jesus because he comes back every year and gives me physical evidence of his existence. It's like I don't even need God in the first place because I got Santa Claus, motherfucker. And then all of a sudden, there's that one sly-ass, slightly older than everybody else kid in your class in whatever grade it might be, first grade, second grade, and they tell you at the bus stop there is no Santa Claus. And they lay out all of their evidence for you and how they found all their presents in their mom's basement and how they watched their dad sneaking into the room one night and they opened their one eye and saw it all occur. And it breaks your heart at first. But then for me and maybe some other people out there, I don't know, if you are, use the hashtag Claus Lie. It makes you start to distrust your parents. Well, it's the first time they lied to me, and I'm like, well, if you're going to lie to me about that and that hardcore about it, then who's to say that everything else you tell me is true? Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. When we had my son, that is the first conversation that me and the wife really got into it over, was Christmas. Because I'm the same way. Like granted, my upbringing was a little bit on the rougher side, if you will. But there is no difference between equating Santa Claus with the Christian religion, except one brings you Christmas, presents once a year, but it's that lie to control children's behavior. Yeah. Right? But it's a lie.
It's a lie. It's not. I mean, controlling behavior is a good thing because, we were talking about this with Josh too. That like a kid in a restaurant is either going to make that experience horrible or the parents are going to constrain that kid. And I was comparing the kid to a corporation and the parents to the government, and the restaurant being our economy, right? So you got to constrain the corporations or else they destroy your fucking economy because all they want to do is be selfish. And the same happens with that, but you don't do it by lying to them. You don't do it by fucking them over so that it's not fun to do the job.
Well, let's think about this for a minute. Instead of I'll use your own analogy, right? If you look at a child acting up in a restaurant like that, 90% of the time it's because that child is not getting attention from the two people who should be giving that child attention. Period.
That's an interesting way to look at that.
Right. So instead of you going out as a family dinner at a restaurant or whatever, you know what I mean? Because if you ever in that situation, just stop, sit back, and don't have that immediate "I'm trapped on an airplane with a baby" reaction, and just watch the interaction or lack of interaction.
It's almost like I could then equate that to if a corporation is fucking the economy up with their activities, it's not that we're punishing the corporation for doing it. We're really just it needs our attention, and the discipline that we give it by putting constraint on its ability to perform that same negative action, like stopping default swaps, let's say, all of a sudden that's actually a good thing, and it bounces the economy back a little bit, and it takes care of the problem, and the corporation still makes money.
But looking at your analogy there, it's just like modern day or even everyday parents. It didn't matter how much people threaten their kids with Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Come Christmas Day, they still had presents. They could have fucking set their siblings on fire, raped the dog, turn the cat into fucking puree. You know what I mean? But they'd still have Christmas. So what the fuck was the use of all those threats when at the end of said behavior, there is no negative payoff or consequences to that action?
So you can look at that as like if you're going to have constraint on corporations, but you're not actually going to put any CEOs in jail, what's the fucking point of even having the laws? Because they're not afraid of them. They just look at it as they're going to fine me $10 million, but I made $4 billion on the transaction, so I think I'll just take the fine.
So why don't they treat it like they would? Now, this is a thing that I say is if you're going to apply a law, you apply a law across the fucking board evenly, right? If the police seize your property because they think you're a drug dealer, you have to prove that every dollar that you have did not come from those proceeds, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you're getting fined as a corporation, the fine should not be the $10 million. The fine should be every fucking dollar you made from the point where they can prove that you broke the law.
Hell yeah, you should not be able to profit from breaking the law. And it seems like they're legally allowing them to do it.
That's what I mean. So, I mean, It would be one of those things where it's like, okay, well, on January 27th, we see here that you broke this SEC violation and you broke the law. So all profits from December or from January 28th to current day, we were now going to seize. People would be like, what the fuck? You can't do that. And it's like, no, that's exactly what they do when they think Bob down the street selling meth.
Yeah.
You know, they come in, they take his house. It's not.
You get somebody hooked on drugs, you can likely ruin their life. They'll end up having to sell everything they have, even their fucking mother if they can. They end up, if they don't go to rehab, they end up in jail. They rot away or they get killed. And same shit happens when you get somebody hooked into the stock market, right? Because they rope these people in, especially, or fuck, with like low income housing loans, right?
Yeah, or look at any corporation. What about all these corporations that are responsible for negative health? I mean, New York tried to step in and say, look, you guys don't need to drink 64 ounces. We're going to make it to where you have 22 ounces is the biggest you could buy. People lost their goddamn minds.
Yeah, they were like, I'm buying 4 of them now.
That's right.
Bitches. Yeah.
How dare you tell me this, that, the other? But if you look at what the corporations are doing, it's no different than if you made your own energy drink and put meth in it. Right?
Right.
You made Chris's energy drink and you put a little bit of meth in to make sure you hook those guys and get them coming back. What's the difference between that, Pepsi, Coke, Mountain Dew, that they're putting sugar and caffeine and God knows what the fuck else in because they want you to drink their fucking product?
Yeah, dude. Sugar is the biggest drug there is.
Exactly. Sugar is and back in the day, the evil empires were a little bit more sparsely out because I grew up during the whole age of fat is bad for you. And the people that were in the sugar industry were like, yes, let's put more money into that thing of fat-free this, fat-free that. But at the same time, now the government's sitting here going, holy shit, we got all these dairy farmers that they've got all this fucking cream and all this stuff. Well, what do? We make cheese. And then we say, put cheese on everything. Yeah.
And cheese is actually good for your body. This is a CBS special about how you should eat more cheese.
Or drink more milk or do this. But it's those industries in the beginning with sugar that fucked everything now. I mean, you can look at there's certain statistics that you can find out there. And I know I say the whole thing about statistics, but realistically, when a 3, 4, 5-year-old child, by the time they're that age, has had more sugar in their short little life than their great-grandparents had in their entire fucking life?
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah, or it's a cricket.
Right. But it's one of those things.
People. Yeah. Right.
It's whatever the corporations can get away from. Or what
and what's so much better is then sugar is now the demon and fat is kind of the demon. And they're like, what do we do? Well, we here at Cyril, which was owned by, I believe, Donald Rumsfeld at one, or no, Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney was on the board there at Cyril. And they made fake sugar. They're like, yeah, we took formaldehyde and we pulled some stuff out of it, and now it's sweet, and it's 1,000 times sweeter than sugar, and it doesn't have any of the calories, and your body just kind of pushes it out through the endocrine system. So they released that, and now people are getting diabetes. And like exactly the thing that everybody wanted to consume, Diet Coke, in order to not get diabetes from eating too much sugar, and it flips their fucking insulin levels all over the place.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people don't understand. Like, take the first original fake sugar, which was saccharin.
Yeah, right.
Do you know what that's made from?
What's that made from?
Well, back in the
Is
day,
that the formaldehyde one?
no, it's not formaldehyde. It's coal tar liquor.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it's a byproduct of the coal industry. I imagine that in the lab, someone said, "Hey, Bob, test that," and he probably was, West Virginia, didn't hear the accent, and he said, "Taste it, okay? Oh, that tastes sweet." So they actually found I do believe that is the story of how saccharin came about. But I mean, it's a byproduct from a fucking, industrial slurry that, yeah, I'm sure consuming coal is great for your fucking endocrine system. I'm sure that it is.
I would assume that is another carcinogen that we're just not allowed to talk about.
Yep, that's just like you see some reports that are out there and some that it's bullshit. It's the same thing. I mean, Donald Trump didn't do anything new and original to get himself elected. He's not this brilliant fucking mastermind that was able to dupe America. He was just a fucking retard at the right time in the right spot who was like, well, we'll just say it's all fake news. And we'll just say we're do this and it's now this. You know what I mean? It's always the same thing. Huh. Look at McCain. McCain, everyone, when he died, oh, what a war hero. McCain was a fucking idiot. He crashed like 9 airplanes. And if it wasn't for the fact that his daddy was a fucking admiral, his ass would have been thrown out of the fucking military within first 3 weeks of fucking flight school.
And not to float too many theories out there, but there are legit veterans who served with McCain or whose fathers served with McCain with stories describing how he actually was helping the enemy out in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
He was keeping in the 90s. He was keeping us from finding POWs that were lost in Vietnam. He actually was the only guy in the Senate that was blocking it, keeping them from passing a bill that was going to give money to go and search for these people. Just throwing that out there,
Same thing like George Bush. George Bush, Senior died. And everyone's like, oh my God, we lost a great hero.
Yeah.
Like, motherfuckers, do you not remember that he was ex-CIA? Do you not remember the bullshit that he did?
Yeah, bringing cocaine into our lives.
He is quoted as saying, and I don't remember where the quote kind of came from, but he basically says, look, if people ever find out what we did, we'll be lucky if they don't pull us through the streets and lynch us.
Yeah, right. And not to mention what he did with his presidency. Everyone wants to look at the first Gulf War, I forgot the name of it, Operation Desert Storm.
Yeah.
As like a giant victory, and how he left Saddam Hussein installed in his position, but he put sanctions on him to make sure he wouldn't do it again. And
right.
he was in and out of there real fast, and it was so like shock and awe, and it all happened. But guess what really happened there? First of all, Saddam is our ally for most of history, right? Until he starts to do things that we told him not to do, and he did it anyway. We lured him into going into Kuwait because he asked for permission first. He goes in there, we show up, we make up a lie talking about how babies are being thrown out of their incubators. That didn't happen. And the person they put up to do the lie was a 15-year-old girl who was the daughter of the ambassador.
Yeah,
to that country, right? So she's an American. Well, I guess she has dual citizenship, but she didn't just come from Kuwait. She didn't just witness any of that. She totally lied. She had acting coaches. And furthermore, they then go in there and they deliberately destroy grain mills. They destroy their warehousing for food. They start blowing up hospitals, places that had children in them. They wiped out like 3,000 people in a matter of hours and destroyed their food systems, so that then when they did have to surrender, by the way, they also shot Iraqi soldiers in the back as they ran away. There's footage of this shit. Then they put sanctions on the country that turned out to kill upwards of 50,000 children. And Madeleine Albright comes out and says, you know what? If I had to do it all over again, I'd do it exactly the same way. There are always casualties and things like this.
Right.
Because she doesn't give a shit.
No,
so,
and
you know what? Fuck that guy.
Pretty much. I mean, fuck him in his 1,000 points of light. I hope he's getting 1,000-pointed pineapple shoved up his ass in hell right now.
Oh.
Is it 2:30 yet? Because I'm pretty sure at 2:30 Satan shoves a pineapple up his ass.
you know, live feed on yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Considering that, I'm Satan. So fuck, why not? I mean, and there's all the other shit that he did. I mean, his 1,000 points of light was a ripoff of trickle-down economics. Like,
yep.
People forget that. It's like, you guys are fucking dumb. And I am so... I will take a stand right now. Fuck political correctness. Fuck everything. I don't care. If you were an asshole in life and you fucking die, I will be the first person to say I'm glad that asshole's dead.
Exactly.
You know, he's not a hero.
Lives on after them. That's, you know, Shakespeare wrote that line, and really, it's like the establishment's trying to do exactly the opposite. They're trying to rewrite history as they eulogize these people, and it makes no sense to me whatsoever, except for the fact that if anyone who's in an official position, like, you know, all past presidents, were to point out that this guy did something horrible, then that means that they're going to be under the same scrutiny.
Well, not only that,
obviously they're keeping each other's lie. It's like this club that they're now all a part of.
I want people to listen and take anything. If you don't take anything else from the words out of my fucking mouth, at least take what George Carlin says and wake the fuck up and learn to critically think. Fuck your religion. Fuck your political parties. Fuck your country club that you hang out with the boys. Fuck all that shit. Pay attention and look at how bad things are getting, and it's going to get worse. It ain't going to get better. It ain't going to be a problem that can be like, well, we're going to vote for a progressive. We're going to vote for this. Because the problem isn't the people. It's the fucking system. Pure and simple. I mean, you've got now junior people, brand new, that are going in and warning you, hey, we're not dealing with the federal government. We're dealing with lobbyists who are sitting here questioning us. Well, how do you feel about shoving explosive up a ass of a owl just so we could, clear cut a forest? How do you feel about that?
Yeah,
that's fucking horrible.
Man, we're from the United Texas Front of Brown People Destruction Services. How do you feel about slitting the throat of your... Oh, wait, can I see your arm again? Oh, Jesus Christ. Hey, we got another one over here.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's one of those things. It's like a lot of people don't understand. Okay, going back like you were talking about with George Bush, Operation Desert Storm. Wow, you mean the quote unquote most powerful military on the planet, i.e. the only country that's stupid enough to spend 57 times more budget on fucking military than it does on education, went to a third world country and was able to decimate their army in 48 hours? Shocking.
Yeah, right.
But my question, but it's the same thing that's been going on for the last 30 years. My question is this. It doesn't matter. Iraqis, ISIS, aliens, the fucking Motar who lives in the center of the goddamn earth, if he's the next fucking, terrorist, and the U.S.'s little fucking play on how do we keep our little wars going. Motar. ISIS does not have a fucking air force. Why do we have troops on the ground? Can't we just fly airplanes, which they don't have, and just be like, drop that bomb, drop it. That tells me that it's not a real fucking thing, because you wouldn't sit here and say, Chris, me and you are going to fight to the death, and I know you got a real, weak knee, but I'm not going to hit you in that knee and then hit you in the head with a brick. I think what instead I'm going to do is give you a fighting check. No. You wouldn't fucking do that.
Yeah. No, nor would a normal government employ the very group that they've been hunting for decades in order to try to hunt what they suppose is an even worse group, right? We arm Al-Qaeda and we train them to fight, but only in that one little region where we have to deal with ISIS, because otherwise we're really going to have a problem with...
But wasn't Al-Qaeda involved in the attacks of September 11th, 2001?
That's what we were told.
Oh my!
The Saudis. Oh, and guess what? Another thing that you can thank George Herbert Walker Bush for is he loosened the sanctions. After he was done with the presidency, he still did business, right? Yeah. Well, in the late 90s, I just learned, he went to Saudi Arabia and talked to some emirates or kings or whatever the fuck, spoke to them, and what they wanted in return for them to do business with him was to get his influence in our government to loosen the restrictions on people getting their visas checked coming out of Saudi Arabia so that they could flow to the United States more freely without heavy restriction, right? Without getting searched constantly or having to get under scrutiny. And he got that to happen. And as a result of him getting that to happen with his son in office, mind you, and actually he did it under the Clinton administration, the people that came over here from Saudi Arabia that were the folks who learned how to fly airplanes but not land them, they all came in without getting caught for actually having been associated with groups that they otherwise would have never been allowed in the United States. Immigration didn't stop them. And it's all thanks to fucking Pappy Bush.
So it's almost like they had this planned out way in advance and kept it in the back pocket for when they
whether or not it was Whether or not it was for 9/11 is beyond. I mean, it's not beyond the scope of possibility that this could have been the Saudis planning this, or the Bushes working with the Sauds, or whatever. But
okay, but
I have
why
no
didn't
proof
we?
of that.
But how come we didn't attack Saudi Arabia when like half of the known hijackers, if you follow the original storyline,
Because there's them and Israel are the last couple of groups out there that actually want to pay for oil using the petrodollar.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, if we're gonna, we went to war in Afghanistan and Iraq because of their harboring terrorists. Yet we never talked to Saudi Arabia about them. 6 or 8 people that were Saudi nationals because they found their passports. Right?
Well, right. It's because your rich cousin. So to speak, your rich cousin fucks your wife, but then he hands you $1 million and says, "Let's forget about this."
Well, I'd look at him and
that
say,
other guy up,
I'd say, look, throw in another middle 5, we can wobbly H the wife. What do you say?
Jesus Christ! We're so deep in bed with them that we tried to obfuscate that truth. And in fact, Obama, when the law was passed that allowed people to be able to sue Saudi Arabia directly because of the findings that showed that all the hijackers came from there, Obama said it was a bad idea because it allows then for other countries to sue the United States directly for their losses and casualties.
Yeah, I think the same thing. But that law that you were talking about for Obama, there's a really good link to Trump in that. And the simple fact that the first couple of weeks of January, right before Trump's inaugurated into being the president of the United States, a group of Saudi lobbyists buy 500 rooms at Trump Towers. They buy 500 rooms in Chicago, and I think they bought rooms in Mar-a-Lago at $500 a night. So you can't sit here and tell me that that's not payoff money. And there's also rumors now that you're talking about that law that you were talking about with Obama. These guys were then using veterans, American veterans, to go and lobby against that because now they could be like you said, they could be prosecuted by other countries.
Yeah, right.
But now these vets are coming out and saying, well, wait a minute now. We went 7 times between January and February of the year that he was inaugurated, which was 2016. They never went and protested. You never saw anything on the news about it. But they were used as smokescreen to dump $2.5–3 million into Trump's coffers from the Saudis with not having, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's provable.
Dude. I'm telling you, everyone's like putting this picture up of the Trumps and the other presidential families sitting in that row at the recent funeral for that piece of shit warmonger, and not McCain. Sorry, I'll be more specific.
Yeah, you got to be a little bit more
Bush.
specific.
Yeah, they're sitting in the row, and people are making these memes saying, "Oh, wow, that must be awkward," and everyone's looking forward, and the Trumps look like they're getting shunned, and this and that and the other, and by the way, that was a piece of candy. Quit trying to say it was a flash drive that younger Bush passed off to Obama's wife there. They're all connected. I think the only disconnection there could possibly be the Obamas and the Trumps, because I don't think that their families were mingling together. But as far as the Clintons and the Trumps are concerned, they really are peas in a pod. They are not adversaries.
No, I mean, and here's I'm going to break it down.
All of the
real
evil
easy.
hits both of them at the same time, like a shotgun.
I'm going to break it
I
down.
hope they both go down. That's really what I want. But
right, but I'm going to break it down for all my Southern folk down here. I want you to look at politics, and it's not as Jason Bourne and sneaky and this as much as you think it is. I want you to think of professional wrestling. That's exactly what American politics is. It's professional wrestling. One time you gotta have the bad guy. You gotta have a good bad guy. So it makes sure your good guy look even that much better. Yet you can't let it out that your good guy after his shows is, constantly walking around whatever town they're in, high on meth, chasing kittens with a razor because you must shave all the pussies. And his, meth-driven fucking madness, but you can't have that because that can't be known because then it'll ruin. You know what I mean? It's the same fucking thing, same storyline, same bullshit. Fuck. In wrestling, it was the Sheik was the bad guy, and that was in the 80s. And like, I mean, I'm pretty sure all the fucking footage that I was shown growing up in the 80s, the only thing that I got from all the terrorist videos that they were showing about Al Qaeda and this, that is, man, all we got to do is not have any jungle bars around, and I think we're good, because those motherfuckers are really good with the jungle gym. You know what I mean? But again, you're talking about a group
the
of
monkey
people.
bars, right.
But you're talking about a group of people that don't have access to heavy armor. They don't have access to a military structure. They don't have access to an air force. They don't have access to a lot of shit. But we're supposed to be afraid of them. And then that's my biggest thing. I'm done being afraid of all these people.
Actually,
I'm scared of this white guy when we rip the mask off of ISIS and come to find out George Bush Jr.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You know what? They don't produce all of those things for themselves, but I would say they do have access to them. The problem is their access to them is our very own CIA.
Right.
They're the ones that are over there in former times. In the 70s, they were using those folks for different purposes, trying to disrupt this like communist threat coming out of Russia. And so they were using that space because Russia's always been involved in the Middle East. That's where their pipelines have always gone back and forth through, right? Like,
exactly.
If anything, us getting in there was us being jealous of them and trying to disrupt their flow of cash. In fact, this is speculation only, but I bet you could trace the entire Cold War back into some kind of oil trade nonsense going on in the Middle East that they just weren't talking about at that point.
Well, pretty much.
Because they were our fucking allies in World War II.
Yes.
They lost more lives than we did in World War II because they were ultimately the ones who trounced the Nazis. We did a whole lot of work on that, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody who fought and died in World War II trying to defeat the Nazis, even though Prescott Bush himself was giving them fucking money and munitions. Russia actually were the good guys in that situation, and leadership changes, people are assholes, they get into some kind of economic battle, but in order to keep the population behind them, they make up a bunch of fucking bullshit like the Cold War. I don't think there was ever a point. There was maybe one moment where people were worried enough that somebody was going to nuke somebody else, But at the end of the day, the guy in Cuba that could have launched the missiles on us had a change of heart and decided not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So why should you ever be... people don't want to destroy all of humanity. I don't know.
Well, it's just the same thing. Like, I remember I grew up... You got to remember, I was a teenager during the Cold War. And that's the thing. Like, I grew up like, holy shit, the Russians and this, that. Yeah, exactly. But slowly, when you start to view more of the world, you start to understand that if you flew over to Russia during the Cold War and handed out American passports to just any Russian that wanted them and gave them an airplane ride, you wouldn't have enough room. They were living in horrible fucking times. They didn't really give a shit.
No, it was basically corrupted communism. I'm not saying that communism's great, but I am saying that what they had was not really communism. It was people that figured out how to disrupt the system and take all the money out of it.
Oh yeah, you mean like
oligarchs, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you mean you had the top 1% fucking the other 99% of the country? Gee, where do I know that one from?
Yeah, I know, except we have different words in America for what happens to a capitalist democracy that turns into one of those, and then you have to say it's authoritarianism.
Right.
So we're becoming fascist, or we're going to be in a fascist regime at some point if we continue down this path.
Well, like I said, I'm not advocating violence or anything else, but I want people to fucking seriously decide. Either wake the fuck up and try to fix it, because right now it's still, I think, honestly, it's still fixable because of technology. And the reason I say that is I haven't finished it, but there's a great interview with Rogan and this Ben Giddin guy, I think. But they're talking about AI and AGI and blockchains and stuff like that. Well, you can use blockchain technology to do politics.
Well, wait. Now, AI is artificial intelligence. What's AGI?
Artificial general intelligence. That's technically the term that they're trying to use more and more to get away from AI because, gee, what does AI inspire? The Terminator's going to come kill us all.
So artificial general intelligence is...
Yes. It's a little bit different. Like I said, I'm not done with the whole episode. But yeah, definitely do it. I mean, but he talks about cryptocurrency and ways on how it can be applied to other things. Like, I mean, if you think about it, politics and voting. If everyone is assigned a number and it's randomized and it's anonymous, but it can be verified that it is you, then how do you rig an election? Especially if you've got an AI that can sit here and say that, look, this is all the votes that came in. This is who it went for. That we can verify these votes. We can't verify these votes, so they get thrown out.
We should also bear in mind that nobody's perfect. In that, hard as we may try, there's always going to be a flaw in any system that we come up with that's going to leave some people left short or holding the bag. And that's not to defend, exploitation in any way, but it is to say that, like, okay, so we have blockchain for voting. Well, if anyone's ever out there has ever tried to join Steemit and successfully got verified through Steemit, as soon as you lose that first password that they give you, which is so enormously long, you can't possibly remember it. It's like 30 characters or something, right? With all sorts of characters in it. Well, I tried to, and maybe I'm just missing something, and comment below and let us know, but I tried to join 3 different times. I only have 3 email addresses, and all 3 times I failed. I copied and pasted the goddamn password, and when I put it in, it didn't work for some reason. And because it didn't work, they don't know what it is, so they can't recover anything like a normal website. You basically aren't allowed to associate another thing ever again to that email address, and you have to go make a new one in order to try to join them. So if you think about voting in that way, what is it going to take for people to be able to maintain that password without being able to give it up, so that they can use blockchain voting without
it's
whole swaths of forgetful people fucking up and not getting to vote?
It doesn't matter. You can do biometrics. You can either use fingerprints,
fingerprint ID. Yeah,
retinal
fingerprint
scan.
I would say is because you can already do that with your phone on most phones now.
Yeah. Not only that is not only that.
Although
is
I don't like it.
How about this? And a lot of people don't realize that in the United States, when you're born, right, you're already assigned a number. It's called Social Security number.
Oh, but we give that away to so many people. It's
that's
such
fine.
an easy number to hack.
But that's fine. But here's the thing that doesn't change over time, and that's your genome, right?
But so now you're diving into the realm of collection of data on the populace. Jesse, I can't believe I would ever hear you advocate for something like that.
What do you mean?
I don't want the government to have my fucking DNA on.
They already have your fucking DNA.
Hell no,
file.
they don't.
You don't think so?
I know they don't, because my parents wouldn't allow me to go into the fingerprinting stuff that they had when they were collecting shit for children.
Do you have a driver's license?
Yeah.
And they have your fingerprint on file?
No, I never gave my fingerprint for a driver's license.
I guarantee you're in the file more than, or in the system more than you think.
Okay,
I was just saying,
I'll accept that, but not my DNA. Like, I'll never do that 23andMe thing. I don't want anybody to have my clone knowledge. I don't know. It just feels so invasive. That's akin to like getting a chip in your arm so that you don't have to carry a wallet.
But there's a difference, right? What I'm talking about is a system that can undeniably and unfallibly recognize you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I'm not saying tie that to the other systems.
The way they tried to do that originally, and I think I know where you're going. I understand where you're going with it, and I really do like this idea. And I want to relate it to one other thing, because I noticed handwriting is something that's kind of dying off because of technology. And originally, your own identification was your signature.
Correct.
And anyone who was literate anyway could write in script, in cursive. Like, they learned these things partly because of like discipline, but everyone had a fucking signature, and that signature never deviated. But if you look at signatures of people nowadays, it's like it's different every single time, and it actually doesn't matter on most things that you sign off for. But when you fill out a ballot to vote, or when you go to vote and register to vote, that signature that you write in there is the only thing they have to compare to the other signatures you give involving the election process if you use a paper ballot system.
Right.
And if it is deviating by and paper ballot also includes the absentee ballots, which is what most people do now, which is why there's always all these extra ballots being driven in by people and shit.
Well,
and
here's the thing that I have a problem. I know where you're going with it.
If they don't match up, they throw it out.
Right. But no one's got a fucking problem giving Google everything from your fucking social security number for Prime to a goddamn sperm sample to get that fucking extra fucking 3-day free shipping. Or to be able to watch this show, or to be able to do this, or to be able to do that, or to be able to exist online. But my point is if you've got AI or AGI, and you've got a system in place that it is a sealed, self-contained, self-aware system, and you just type in, don't let someone hack you. You put in the parameters that are straightforward. You know what I mean? That there isn't right. When we already have these systems, why should Facebook be the only fucking people with AI right now that can sit here and say, well, we noticed we were talking about gummy bears, and here's 77 ads about gummy bears and gummy butt plugs and gummy. You know? Or why the fuck is it that the tech, you know, if it's consumer-based or military-based, that's the thing that drives me up the wall. The only time we get any goddamn technological, you know, advancement out of any fucking industry, if there's an application for it to fucking kill a brown person or an application to sell me a gummy butt plug.
A gummy butt plug?
That's the only time that this fucking new shit is ever fucking given to us fucking poor little fucking slaves.
Do you think they'd make those in peanut butter?
Peanut butter gummy? Dude, what is wrong with you?
Peanut butter? Well, it's going to be in a butt, so I figure there's peanuts going on.
Well, that's true, too.
I don't know. I eat a lot of peanuts.
Okay. But you know what I mean? It's like, but it's the same thing. If you look at how society is structured, it's structured for division. Our culture is xenophobia, it's religionism, it's sexism, it's ageism, it's everything of this person's not like you, but you're cool, so you can have this beer and you can make sure you buy this stuff, but that person won't do it. But we're still going to make them pay the same amount of taxes. But you're going to get all the benefits because we like you and you think like us and you're going to vote up. You know what I mean?
Right.
And people need to step the fuck back, get rid of your fucking religious bullshit things, and understand the simple fucking fact that you are a human first and foremost. If technology went out tomorrow and we were attacked by giant fucking aliens who looked like shaved bears, A, you're going to shit yourself because a shaved bear with no hair is fucking horrifying. B, they're fucking aliens and they're talking shaved bears, sit down here to fucking destroy our technology and enslave or kill all of human race, right? Guess what? Your religion's going out the window. Your racism is going out the window. It's like fucking Ronald Reagan said in a goddamn speech. The only way to unite mankind is to have an alien threat.
Yeah, honestly.
So then if that's what it takes for you to realize there is no difference between you and the guy across the street who came from geographically some other fucking place, and you guys are staring at each other like a fucking Hatfield and McCoy is going, he doesn't believe in my God, and he doesn't vote the way I do vote, and he drives a fucking import, and he drinks light beer, he's a fucking commie. You know what I mean?
It's 100% bullshit, like surface nonsense.
Exactly.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're all fucking human beings.
Exactly, but that shaved alien bear standing in the street between the two of them, they're going to look at each other and go, let's fuck this guy.
No. I'm against the bear.
I just kind of gave myself a little bit of a horrible fucking nightmare now.
Actually, I forget the name of it. I'll try to send you a link, but there is an app for the iPad if you have one, or it might be for Android too, but it's bears that shoot each other. It's a first-person shooter, and you're shooting teddy bears.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, pink teddy bears that come after you. You're a bear yourself, but you have a machine gun. And when you shoot them, their head flies off. Yeah, it's awesome.
But I mean, that's the thing. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm sick and tired of watching the division. I'm sick and tired of watching people fall for the same bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm to the point now. It's like sending the fucking bears. Like that. I mean.
So really, okay. So to get back to the point that we trailed away from. And you're diving back into your apathy. Can be resolved with you checking out some Carlin, and it seems like you have to get in touch with your spirit animal, and you really need to look into the one thing that seems to be able to bring us all back together so that we can continue to fight, and that is satire and comedy and being able to take a joke and to be able to talk about subjects that are otherwise taboo, but in such a way that gets everybody to giggle about it for 1 second and not have anything off the table, and to be able to say anything you want and to be able to, push back against authority. And it seems more and more the only comedians that are doing that are just doing the fuck Trump kind of stuff. And they've kind of let go of what Carlin and Hicks were pushing at, which was the establishment's the problem. And now it's not the establishment's the problem. We're looking at this individual and saying that he's the root of our evil and all of our issues. And if only we could replace him, even with another Republican, we would be better off. And I just, maybe your ears and your sensibilities would be better off, but your country hasn't changed. It's continued to get worse, and it hasn't just started to get worse 2 years ago.
No, it's almost like Like when we lived in Canada, I told Corey, you know, I had the sneaky suspicion that somewhere in Canada there's a room filled with old men. They're like, dude, they are not going to let us charge them $50 for a case of beer. Fuck, they're going to fucking snap and start fucking killing people. And then people start buying 50 cases. You know, there is no other option but to pay $50 for a case of beer. And they're like, holy fuck, they're not rioting. They're wait, let's see if we can push them with gas. Okay, there's no way they're going to fucking pay $6 for a gallon of gas. There's no fucking way.
And then they do.
I think that mentality has come down here where they're like, there's no way they're going to let us hold comedians in society to a higher standard than our elected officials. And then yet here we go. You got, you know, I'm not saying that what's her name who showed the whole corpse or the headless corpse of Trump. I'm not saying that was the
Kathy
funniest.
Griffin.
Yeah, Kathy Griffin. But
I thought that was hilarious.
And so did I. But the thing is that was like the first shot, and then they were like, holy shit, they took it. Okay, then anyone who speaks out now we're going to silence you because you're homophobe, you're this, you're that. Right. And then we're going to get the social justice warriors triggered on anything. So if anyone says anything negative about this person or this society or Antifa or whoever, now you're, you know, we got that. And then now, like you said, there's, and that I didn't realize it, but I think maybe that's why I'm really starting to get really, really pissed off is they've silenced the comedians. They've silenced the canaries of our little mining project, if you will.
And I mean, for at the very least, things haven't totally changed drastically enough for Bill Hicks and the Carlins and even the other comedians of back in the day who were complaining about the government to be off. You can still listen to it, and it's still pretty much relevant. But there are so few critics of the actual establishment left, and the ones that do exist, they have their own little talk shows now. I mean, there's Lee Camp is doing really well. He's on RT America with Redacted Tonight, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a show that you can tune into where there's a guy who's talking about how it's a whole lot more than just this one piece of shit. Although he does point out that guy's a piece of shit too. I mean, he's not biased or anything. But anyway.
Well, I don't know. Like I said,
they've turned into something else, but they're not doing stand-up shows. And I think the stand-up shows are what reaches everybody because everyone went out to see Carlin. Republicans, Democrats, independents, people that didn't even vote, like especially people that didn't vote. Carlin advocated not voting. He said the only people that have a right to complain are those who didn't vote because, hey, I didn't vote for him.
yeah, exactly. But at the same time, you realize, like you said, I mean, I just got to channel my spirit animal, which is Carlin. But no, and like he said you can either fight and be miserable or you're not going to change anything, or you can sit back and watch the fucking sideshow, which is what it is.
Yeah.
You know?
I still advocate for people voting because I still think that if you could overwhelm them, if you could get like a 90% voting population, you could get a real cross section of what people want. And
but you're going under the assumption that it won't be manipulated with.
Of course it would be, but we're getting really, really good at catching that manipulation faster.
But we don't do anything about it.
We do, though. It's just that it takes forever. Right now, the DNC.
Name one politician we've thrown in jail in the last decade.
Politician?
Yes.
For voter fraud, I would say.
For anything.
Okay. What's his face? That guy that had a mistress that was a Democrat. He was out of North Carolina, I think, and he used his campaign finances to pay off his mistress.
Oh, you mean like Trump did with this fucking porn star?
Exactly. That's really what they're going to end up getting him for, just like they got Clinton for something that was totally unrelated to the Whitewater scandal. You know?
Yeah. Well, exactly. But that's my point is you guys, I get what you're talking about. I understand it, but I'm looking at it from the other point of view of you're here's a perfect example, right? We'll go back to the war analogy, right? I'm looking at the establishment as they're sitting in, the bunker with the fucking machine gun, and they're just chewing everyone up, and you guys are just slapping people in the back going, we voted for you to try next. At some point, you got to stop feeding, fucking people in front of the fucking machine gun because
I guess that'd be kind of like Elysium, yeah.
Exactly. And my thing is
Tomorrow Never Dies. What's that Tom Cruise movie where everything keeps repeating itself?
Scientology?
No.
L. Ron Hubbard?
That's his ridiculous religion. No. Okay, never mind. It's like Groundhog Day, right?
Yeah, I
No
know.
matter
Yeah,
what you do, it's just the same shit.
yeah, the day after tomorrow or something.
Right.
Something like that. But yeah, you know what I mean?
the
It's
special
like,
effects of that.
but everyone is still thinking that, well, if we keep voting and sending people, eventually they're going to run out of bullets. You know what I mean? And it's
That's
like,
true,
no,
but
that's
we're also working on the bullets. We're working on the type of weapons. We're even working on defensive weapons and non-lethal methods of attack. There are other things in the works. It's just that there's so little capital behind it. People want to donate to things that they know is going to give them some kind of immediate satisfaction or return on investment.
they're
That's
the
why
microwave.
they gave 70 cents a day to Sally Struthers back in the day, because within a week's time they got a picture of a kid that they supposedly helped out by giving him another bowl of porridge.
Right.
So that was what really drove that thing, was that tangible evidence. But if you give something to a grassroots organization that isn't going to have something available even in 5 months, because this shit takes time, it's highly likely that you're going to go Red Cross instead, because everybody needs blood. You know what I mean? And
Don't get me started on that shit. That's one thing we'll talk about too. A lot of people don't understand your charitable donations, whether it's blood, whether it's whatever, is making someone else rich. You get that, right?
If it's one that doesn't have an ethical code that lives by, and guess what, most of them don't. There are some charities out there that are okay.
But the thing you have to understand this, let's talk, like you said, Red Cross. I don't know anyone.
Red Cross is awful.
Right. But I don't know anyone that's ever gone to the hospital and needed blood, and they were like, okay, so if we're gonna give you blood, did you want the free stuff that people have donated and is safe and clean, or oh wait, you're not gonna get a choice because we're gonna charge you $6,000 for a pint of blood that people donated to the cause for free.
So they're taking free objects and appropriating them for cash.
Exactly, and the whole, well, if you text 559-4428, $10 will be charged and it will be sent to hurricane relief. I've yet to see anyone in a hurricane zone that were like, hey, we lost everything, but this charity came in and all you guys that hit that text 559 and donated $10, like they dropped off a brand new fucking house for us, man. Thanks a lot. I don't see that. The thing that people got to remember is that Santa Claus is for children, right? And we know how that controls their behavior, that controls their inhibitions, and that can control what they do and don't do, even though it's against their very nature. And adults get Jesus to do the same thing. So, because just by their very definition, you're not supposed to do certain things like, screw the babysitter who's 16 years old or be the pastor and touch children. But if you do, don't worry, we've got a backup plan. You can just ask Jesus to say, hey, sorry, can I have a do-over? And we're all supposed to be like, yeah, okay, why not?
That doesn't make any sense.
Why can't children ask Santa Claus for forgiveness before Christmas? Right?
That is one thing that, okay, so Jesus, or whatever, God has a confessional, and
yes,
and Santa Claus has a stocking, but it's like a feedback, right? Like Santa Claus gives you feedback, and I guess if your life goes for the better and you've been praying like a good soldier, then you can blame God, and if your life goes for the worse and you haven't been praying, well, you can blame yourself. So it's kind of set up like a governmental structure, right? Where they bail out the corporations, but when the people are suffering, they don't bail us out.
No, because if they bailed us out, then it's socialism, and we're not in a socialist country.
No, because what do you expect us to hand out the bootstraps? So when we tell you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps,
right,
you could actually say, well, what do you mean? To be like, well, we gave you the bootstraps, you should pull yourself up. And Jesse, this is leading to, that's what you could call universal basic income.
Exactly.
Literally, the right could bill it and sell it to those people as, these are the bootstraps. You get them when you're born. If you can't make things work on this $30,000 a year per person that we're giving you,
that's on
by
you.
golly, you go ahead and fucking die on the street. And you could even get some libertarians and lefty Democrats and even further lefty Greens to fall in line with that as well. And of course, you'd still keep the safety net for people. Social Security was meant for folks who just simply could not work, right? Who have a disability or something, or they were born with a disability.
Social Security was a government-run retirement plan.
Oh, sorry. Welfare. There we go.
Right.
Welfare was set up for people that had no means to be able to help themselves. Seriously,
exactly.
originally. Then they started expanding it to people who are let off of jobs because of all the recessions we go through. And
Right.
we have a recession, everyone's like, well, dude, I need welfare because I got 5 kids and I just got laid off and I can't make my house payment.
Well, that's your fault because you don't have.
We've been patching the system over and over again.
Exactly, but they've got no problem paying Bezos $4.6 billion in corporate welfare at all.
Motherfucker. Yeah.
The richest man in the world is getting welfare.
It's not right.
You know what I mean?
If he was getting the UBI, I wouldn't care.
No.
Because that means that I am too.
Exactly.
He can take that and he can donate it. He can turn it into his lunch. He probably has had a $30,000 lunch before.
Oh, yeah.
Which, if I had that much money, I would definitely be.
No, actually, I think what he does is he turns it into the $30,000 colonic.
Or maybe he doesn't eat it all. He just gets his blood replaced by a 12-year-old.
There you go.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, the Dick Cheney diet.
Yeah, that backpack is not a fibrillator kit. It's actually there's a child inside.
Oh yeah,
it's just wired to his heart. Yeah,
right. Yeah, but he's gone because if you remember, Halliburton was always in the Middle East. I don't think they were really worried about the oil or after the oil money. I think they were after the Temple of Doom so he could Malachi the fucking soul out of someone to keep his own fucking heart beating.
Oh, geez. Now that you've said that, I'm going to have to use a meme that I showed you. And
Kalima.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Well, on that note, I think we've rambled.
Oh, my God, you did it. Yes.
Yay!
And with that, yep, I think it is probably time to say goodbye. This is the longest. This may end up being a couple of episodes. I'll chop it all up and see what the sushi looks like.
There you go.
But Jess, it has been a pleasure, and I wish you had been there with me and Josh because he was able to go from Santa Claus and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer directly into the red light district and prostitution becoming legal. So you should be proud of your boy.
That's good. I can't believe I brought in shaved alien bears into a conversation.
And you know what? One day there will be a way that we can marry all of those topics together.
You know what? I look forward to the day when Christmas time rolls around and people put the effigies of the shaved alien bears in our yard in like, I don't know, fucking May when we won our independence, and but not before the bears ate Congress.
Yikes. See you, everybody.
See ya.
Sweet.
All right.
Well, I love you. I love you both. May the force be with you, and I'll see you on the flip side, my friend.
Nice. Peace out, Josh.
Whoa, nigga, hot Russian. Whoa, nigga, hot. Whoa, nigga, hot. Whoa, nigga, hot Russian. Whoa, nigga, hot. Whoa, nigga, hot. Whoa, nigga, hot Russian. Whoa, nigga, hot. Whoa, nigga, hot.
Because she's been trained by the man to never speak ill of her own party. She won't be honest.
Well, exactly. Well, you know, that's what I mean. I mean,
Talking bust a nut,